lives in Rockport, and he has been touring the state, listening to people, which I think, frankly, is a very effective way to start that immense job that he has. So without further commentary, Stephen, it's yours.
Thanks for having me. I can't tell you how surreal it is to sort of be back in here. I think most of you know, but in case you don't know, I taught in this very building. Wax hired me, actually. When I started, just so I'll do a little background. I'm a Maine native. You always have to lay that out first of all. So I'm not from away or anything. But I grew up over in Hancock County, little town of Penobscot. I went to Penobscot Elementary School, about 140 kids when I was there, now down to 60 and change. Went to George Stevens Academy, went out of state to college, started my teaching career in Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia, which is this massive county school system down there. About well, when I was there, it was 165,000 kids, so just a massive system, but a good place to start a teaching career. Lots of professional development. They ran their own professional development school, had tons of resources, so it was great. But when our daughter Emily, who's now a 6th grader here, was born, Heather and I decided, time to go. We didn't want to try and raise our daughter in Northern Virginia. So, as I recall, I was thinking about this on the drive and how I ended up here. I was teaching high school. I taught at Langley High School in McLean for 3 years. McLean, Virginia, so this is like down the street from the Kennedy compound and all this kind of stuff. CIA headquarters behind football. Very different type of kids, as you might imagine. Lived in that neighborhood, ambassadors' kids. The joke was, you could tell which was the teacher's parking lot, which was the kids' parking lot, because the one had the Honda Civics and the other had the BMW. And so as I recall, I sent resumes to a bunch of high schools up here, and I actually was up here interviewing for a position at MDI, I think, and happened across the position here, which was an 8th grade position, and called the office. And Wax answered the phone. I'll never forget that. I said, "Can I talk to the principal?" "I am the principal." "Oh, okay." So it came down, we had a meeting, and long story short, ended up here and taught here from fall of 2000 to 2007. I went into the think tank world, did some policy research, also served in the legislature in that time, so was sort of here and there and back and forth and trying to balance all of that. And was asked by Governor LePage to join his staff when he took office back in January, and then over time sort of, I haven't figured out yet, is it a promotion or a demotion to move off the governor's staff and into the commissioner's slot. But nevertheless, that's how it went. And what I have been doing since taking the job is doing this listening tour. And I'd like to take credit for this idea, but I actually stole the idea from Commissioner Deborah Gist, who's the commissioner of Rhode Island. And I thought, I read in her thing, well, she visited all the schools, visit school districts. That sounds like a good idea. Now, of course, Rhode Island is like, I mean, it's tiny. So I didn't quite get the full grasp of this until I was headed to Aroostook County here a few weeks ago. But it actually has been great to get out. And what I've been doing is trying to sort of make a day out of these trips. We're going, and the superintendents in Maine are organizing these superintendent regions, going to the region meetings, sitting down with the superintendents, talking to them, getting some feedback from them, doing some school visits, which have been absolutely fantastic, getting into schools and seeing what's going on, and then doing these community forums in the evenings to try and talk to teachers and community folks. This mid-coast trip kind of got split up because we're right in the heart of the legislative session, trying to get, as both our representative and senator know, I mean, right sort of in the middle of this thing. So I actually did the superintendent's visit maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, doing a school visit up in Searsport in like another week and a half, something like that, and this in the middle. So we kind of broke this one up, but that's okay because I just live down the street. So the purpose of this really is to get some feedback and to get some, just sort of hear what people's concerns are and what they're excited about in terms of our schools, what concerns them about our schools, what concerns them about the direction that we may be going in, and to try and give me a little information to take back to Augusta and work with. Augusta, as our legislators will tell you, it exists in this bubble of kind of unreality that is hard to penetrate sometimes. And so it's important to get out and talk to folks. And like I said, I've been doing this for a few weeks, and I'm starting to sort of get a sense of how to organize my thinking around some of these big challenges that we have. And as I was driving back from, I just did some school visits up in and a community visit up in Oakland. Went into Shelley Moody, who's a Teacher of the Year, was in her classroom last week. Absolutely amazing. And got thinking on the way back about trying to put some semblance of order to all of this in my mind. And the way I sort of, just to give you sort of a little idea of sort of what my thinking is, and I'm not here to do a presentation, I do want to listen. But it seems to me that we've got a handful of challenges here that are pretty big ones. The first challenge is that although everybody is working harder than ever, in terms of the way we traditionally measure the effectiveness of our system, test scores and standardized tests and graduation rates and all those kind of things, we just don't seem to be moving the needle. We're doing a tremendous amount of work, and everybody's looking at data, intervention strategies, and we're doing all of these things. And yet when you look at NAEP scores, or you look at graduation rates, if they move, they just move at this very tiny rate. We just don't seem to be getting traction, despite all the work that everybody's doing. And the second challenge is that there is a growing, I think, a growing body of evidence, but also a growing consensus that the things that we've done to deal with problem number one are making it worse to a certain degree. Parents, I hear all the time about focus on testing, 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 all the time with testing. I hear about a narrowing of the curriculum, that we're focusing on language arts and math, and we're pouring resources into those, and we're shutting down art programs, we're shutting down PE programs, we're shutting down shop programs, and we're narrowing this curriculum. And the kids are pushing back because they feel sort of hemmed in. There was a University of Indiana study here that I just came across my desk. It's older, but I just got it the other day, where 67% of kids report being bored at school every day. We have a huge engagement issue. And the larger issue, if you read, one of the things you get out of this job is people bring you books all the time. So I have this big stack, and I've been trying to work my way through them. But there's a book by a guy named Tony Wagner, who's a Harvard researcher, called The Global Achievement Gap. And Wagner's thesis in this book, which is one of the books that a lot of folks have been recommending to me, is that we do have an achievement gap. We've focused on this achievement gap between sort of, higher socioeconomic kids and lower and so on and so forth. But he says, the real problem we're ignoring is that even the kids coming out of our best schools in this country are not ready for this 21st century economy. They're not ready to work collaboratively across cultures the way they should be. Employers say these kids can't think. They can answer questions. If you sit down and tell them step by step how to do something, they can do it. But they're not independently minded. They're not imaginative. They're not creative. They don't think outside the box. And so there's a concern about that even our best schools, the kids are not ready when they get out the door for the kind of world that they're going to inherit, which is a world that's awash in data that they have to figure out a way to make sense of. So there's issues about whether what we're doing to try and move the needle on some of these performance indicators isn't making the situation worse in some ways. The third piece was put in, I would say the third challenge relates to the first two, and that was sort of put into crystal clarity by a superintendent that I talked to, who said, you have to understand that we are killing our people, that we are driving promising teachers out of the classroom, that we are currently facing potentially not just a teacher shortage, but an administrator shortage. We have 33 superintendent vacancies out of about 100 full-time superintendents across the state. That is huge. Principalships, we are struggling to get people to do this job because the job, especially on the administrator level, has become about paperwork. It's about reports. It's about compliance. It's about, in too many instances, stopped becoming about what's going on in classrooms with kids. And so we've got the pieces that we're doing are not just disconnecting our kids, but our teachers are getting burned out. They're getting frustrated. They're sort of trapped in a system where they're asked to run faster on the wheel, but it doesn't seem to pay off. And we're asking them to do something that no generation of educators has ever been asked to do before. And that is to bring every single one of these kids to a high level of proficiency on rigorous standards. We have never asked educators to do that. Some kids, yeah. Not all kids. We've never